Hi, today we're going to do our second video on our Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous companion build series. Those builds are made for unfair difficulty and were used and tested by me, so I know they hold up on unfair difficulty from early to late game. Today we're doing Camellia. Camellia is the build I'm the happiest with. I do think she works really well. She doesn't do that much on level 2, but level 3 onward she's very useful. She does bring a lot of utility, she's a good support, she brings a lot of tanking with her animal companion, she brings a lot of good spells and immunity spells like freedom of movement and death ward with her cleric levels. She has community domain, which is the best cleric domain you can have. And yeah, she does take a while to get to the cleric levels, of course, but I do think her abilities and spells come in at just the right time. I did need to buy a few freedom of movement and death ward scrolls, especially for the gargoyle and Dresden areas. But after that, she starts getting her build together, and you can do without those. And yeah, she overall ends up being a very powerful companion. I did take a long time to settle in what I wanted to do with her. I knew she wouldn't really be a good damage dealer. She also doesn't do it as a tank for unfair difficulty, and I know there are a lot of builds for her as an off-tank damage dealer for harder or lower, but she doesn't really do that well on unfair. And I settled in a support build, and I think she's the best option you can get for a support. She's very powerful, has a lot of versatility, and that's because we get her at level 1 and we can build her almost from scratch. We kind of have a wasted level on Spirit Hunter, which we do not use at all, but everything else works just great. So with that, let's get into the build. For our first level up, we're going straight to Witch, and that's because Witches get hexes at a much higher rate than Shamans. As early as level 5, since we have a 1 level offset because we have 1 level on Shaman, we already have 3 hexes, and that's going to be our first big milestone in this build. So which it is, because otherwise we would need to wait until level 8 to get 3 hexes, and that's just too long for me. Skills, you want Persuasion as high as you can get, and you can choose whichever other skill you want for your other points. Familiar, we want Viper, 3 bonus to Persuasion. Hex is going to be Fortune. There's an argument for Protected Luck, as it can be used more than once per day, but I do think during Prologue we lack more damage than we lack defensive, and Fortune is going to allow us to get some hits in even after we spend our True Strikes, and it also boosts our crit chance, and that really can save you in some harder fights. For Curse, we take Demonic, an extra +2 to Persuasion, and this is going to allow us to hit more demoralized checks, reducing enemy AC and attack bonus. For Spells, Enlarged Person is the most important. It's going to boost our damage dealer's damage by quite a lot, since it increases both strength bonus, and with the size increase your weapon damage also increases. For the other spell, you can choose really anything you want. I took some heals. And that's going to be our first level. During the prologue we don't do much besides casting Fortune when we need it and trying to demoralize enemies every other turn. Our second level is going to be Stigmatized Witch again. We really want to get those hexes. Skills, again we want Persuasion as high as we can. Anything else doesn't really matter. It is going to be Weapon Focus. I chose Rapier. The weapon is not that relevant, but Weapon Focus is a requirement for Dazzling Display, which is a AoE demoralize, and that's going to be our main action throughout most of the early and mid game. Our hex is going to be Cackle. We are going to hold until level 5 for Protective Luck. We take Cackle now, and that's because Cackle extends duration of other hexes, in special Fortune Hex. And Fortune Hex is extremely powerful. It's only balanced because it lasts for only one round, but with Cackle, we are able to keep Fortune up for as long as we want really. Since Cackle is a move action, we can actually Cackle twice per turn, making it so that every turn we not only maintain Fortune up, but we extend its duration for one extra round. Meaning, if you cast Fortune out of combat on everyone in your party and keep using Cackle, you can extend Fortune's duration for up to maybe 1-2 minutes, even longer if you have the patience to do it, and then you go into combat with everyone in your party having Fortune up. And this is just so powerful. This is such a game changer. You are going to be hitting so much more often, and you're going to be seeing so many more criticals. This is... I can't oversell this combo Fortune and Cackle, and when we get Protective Luck, we're going to talk about numbers and how much it changes your odds, and it's just crazy. It's so strong. But that's going to be it for our second level, and we keep going Witch until level 5, when we'll meet again to talk about Protective Luck. So here we are at level 5. Skills, again, we want Persuasion, nothing else really matters. Hit, finally we get Dazzling Display. Now we are able to demoralize in a AoE. You want to be using Dazzling Display every turn you can, so right click on Dazzling Display and just leave Camellia close enough to enemies so that they can't hit her, but she still can cast Dazzling Display and hit everyone in the fight. Finally, Protective Luck, and this is such a big milestone for our build. It's such a good hex. You can use it every fight if you want. It doesn't have a limited amount of uses per day like Fortune has, and just run the numbers. Like, if you have an enemy that could hit you only on a 20, they are still going to get some hits in your tank, because enemies in this game have, even early on, they have 3-4 attacks sometimes. At later levels they are going to have 10 attacks. And if an enemy has only a 5% chance to hit you, but is getting 10 hits per turn, odds are you are going to take some damage every fight. And with unfair difficulty, enemies deal double damage, so even getting just a few hits in might mean you need to be doing a lot of healing, and you might even lose animal companions very often, even against kind of trash mobs. But you cast Protective Luck on your tanks. Now, if the enemies could only hit you on a 20, so a 1 in 20 chance, with Protective Luck, they have a 1 in 400 chance. And now there's basically no way you are dying against trash mobs, and this saves so many resources for harder fights. Not only that, even against very strong enemies, I don't think I would have been able, for example, to beat Playful Darkness on Chapter 3 without Protective Luck and Fortune. I think even with max buff, Playful Darkness still could hit my best tanks on a 2 or higher. That means a 95% chance of hitting us, but with Protective Luck, that already goes down to a 91%, so almost doubled Playful Darkness mischance. And using that along mirror image and displacement blink, since Playful Darkness doesn't have true sight, I was able to actually tank it for enough rounds to where I could kill it on Chapter 3. And that's thanks to Camellia, really. I don't think I would have done it without it. I don't think it's impossible. I just think I would not be willing to reload as many times as it would take me without Protective Luck and Fortune. And so even against enemies that can hit you on a 20, on a 2 or higher, you still get almost a 2 times increase in their mischance in Protective Luck. Again, Fortune is absolutely busted, and Protective Luck is just as strong, if not stronger, since you can use it as many times per day as you want. And it's worth mentioning, Fortune also makes you roll saving throws twice, skill checks twice. So even in dialogues, Fortune is useful against casters which have spells with saving throws that where your AC doesn't really matter. Fortune can save your life. Even those saving throws that require you to roll a 20, which are basically all saving throws on unfair, you are now almost twice as likely to make those. So Fortune and Protective Luck basically make this build. They are so powerful, and they absolutely changed the game. And at level 5, you really need those to be able to beat some of the harder fights like Nabazu, Mimics, Succubus. Even some fights inside the Great Garrison are really difficult, and this 3 hex combo is what gets you there. For spell, we take for moderate wounds. Camellia is also going to be our main healer. For later levels, we're going to go full cleric, and yeah, we'll meet again for our next cleric level. So for our first cleric level, we are going for Angelfire Apostate. And that's because Angelfire Apostle doesn't give us channel energy feature, it gives us channel positive energy. Since Camellia has that alignment hiding necklace, I'm not sure if it is a bug that we are able to choose positive energy when we go basic cleric with her. If it's not a bug, I do think base cleric is better, but I'd rather avoid using a bug in a case where I'm not sure if it's due to a bug or if it's a feature because of her alignment hiding necklace. And so I took Angelfire Apostle just to be safe. We take a hit with the diminished spellcasting because of this choice, but I'm sticking with it. It's not that big of a deal. Again, Persuasion, most important skill for us. Domains are going to be Plant for Bark Skin and Animal for the Animal Companion. It's worth mentioning that our ability scores are going to go all in wisdom, and that's because of Guarded Heart, the community domain 8 level feature. Of course, we can choose community domain as of now, but there is a mythic ability that's going to allow us to do that. So for level 4, 8 and every other level, you put your ability score into wisdom. And with that, we already have a pretty straightforward path with cleric, not much to talk about. So I'm just going to level up to 20 and we'll meet again to talk about mythic levels, and later I'm gonna go back and talk about our feat choices for each level. For our first mythic rank, we're going to take enduring spells. I'm not sure if this is the best choice. Maybe abundant casting is better, since we have a very low amount of cleric spells at this level, and cleric spells can be used as heals instead. So we get decent value out of abundant casting. The thing is, enduring spells is kind of a pick that makes me need to think less, since I'm not going to need to see which buffs I still have up every other fight. And yeah, I need to have to think about one thing less, so we take enduring spells and greater enduring spells as our first two mythic abilities. At mythic rank 4, we already took enduring spells. We take extra mythic ability greater enduring spells at level 2. At 3rd, we take abundant casting, and at 4th, we have a very important choice. We're going to take impossible domain, and we are going to choose community domain. At this mythic rank, you should be close to or already at level 13, which is your 8th cleric level, meaning you get the Guarded Heart right out of the bat, and Guarded Heart is probably the strongest cleric domain spell. Use it as much as you can. It's only once per day, but if you have a harder fight in an area you still have not beaten and you know you are getting close to a rest, go do that fight, cast Guarded Heart, and it should make the fight much easier. So use it as much as you can. It's very powerful. Not much to talk about for other mythic levels, so we're going to just do a quick rundown of what we choose on side level to full mythic ranks. Now that we have our fully leveled Camellia, let's take a look at our feat choices. At level 7, we took Skill Focus Persuasion, level 9, Deceitful, 11, Boon Companion, so our animal companion doesn't have such a low level. It's not going to be a full level animal companion, but it's still a decent tank. 13, we take Persuasive, and trust me, we do need all those feats into persuasion checks so that we hit our dazzling display demoralizes on unfair difficulty. Level 15, we take Selective Channel. Prior to that, I was using Channel Energy mostly just out of combat to top everyone up if someone had taken damage. And 17 and 19, we just take extra channels. For our mythic levels, we took Improved Abundant Casting at level 5. At level 6, we took extra mythic ability, Less Stand. I do think you should get Less Stand on everyone when playing on unfair difficulty. Level 7, Greater Abundant Casting. Level 8 to 10 are not that relevant. Here are just some options you can take skill focus persuasion. Keep in mind at this point you already have frightful aspect on someone most likely, so you don't need to really use dazzling display anymore, but it's still nice to be able to get that dialogue checks on persuasion. But you could also take extra mythic ability, rupture restraints to avoid some CC, and other useful options. You could take more cleric domains here. Healing domain is a decent one if you feel like you are lacking heals. And also inspirational leader is pretty good. It gives everyone in the party extra initiative, saving throws, and concentration is not that relevant, but initiative and saving throws are very valuable. So you can choose whatever you want. The most important ones for the builds are level 7 and earlier. There's nothing much to showcase in terms of combat in this build, but I'd like to talk about some items. It's very important you carry a rapier because you need the weapon you took weapon focus on in your hand to be able to use dazzling display. Of course, you can choose any weapon you want. It doesn't need to be a rapier, but I chose rapier since she starts with a rapier and she's not going to be attacking anyway. This one is a pretty good, gives you freedom of movement and immunity to fear and death effects. So it's a good option for late game. And Signet of House Vespertilio. This is very important. A +5 bonus to any skill check you choose. You should always choose Persuasion. It's going to be a big difference, a +25% chance basically to hit those demoralized checks, especially when you're getting to the harder fights, bosses. There are many bosses that are not immune to shaken, so keep in mind it lasts just for 1 hour, but you should use it as often as you can. You want it up so that you can hit those demoralized checks more reliably. But that will do it for our Camellia build. Next video I'm going to cover Windwag. I did an evil playthrough, so I did not choose Len, and therefore I could make a build for him, but I would not have tested it, so I wouldn't really be able to confidently say that it works well. So I'm not going to cover Len for now. At least we're going to go to Windwag and keep going the order you find companions. I also do think this Camellia build is the strongest of the builds I'm showcasing here. She just brings so much utility, and that 3-hex combo is just nuts. It's so powerful. I can't even describe how powerful that is. If you do use it, I promise you won't regret. You definitely notice a difference, especially if you're doing a crit fishing trickster build, which I was doing. With dual wielding scimitars, I had a 75% crit chance. My crits did 5 times damage. I got to crazy amounts of damage, and you can get that as early as level 15. At level 15 you can already have a 75% crit chance, and even though you don't hit enemies at an 11 or higher sometimes, you still clear fresh mobs very fast, and that saves resources. So this is a very powerful support build, which without her I don't know if I would have been able to beat some of the harder fights as easily as I did. For example, as I already said, Playful Darkness at chapter 3. So yeah, if you do use it, let me know what you thought. If you have anything that could improve it, also I'd love to hear about it. And I'd also like to say that I do think this Camellia build is much better than a lot of things people put out there. I see a lot of Camellia builds trying to make her kind of a off-tank, sort of damage dealing with shattered defenses, but for me she doesn't get there on unfair. She's still going to be hit too easily. You waste hexes, which in my opinion is the strongest class feature on things like Ice Plant and something that gives you dazzling display or weapon specialization. They are just so much weaker than just having protective luck, cackle and fortune. Even if you do go for a Camellia build, which is more that off-tank damage dealer, think about not choosing the hexes recommended in most builds you see out there and take the 3 I mentioned first. I promise you will not regret it. They are very powerful. But that's it for my Camellia build, and until next video I hope you have a good time.